Acer Aspire 5, 2018, Review, an affordable mid-range laptop with some key flaws. Design. The Acer Aspire is certainly a good value machine, but the payback for the low price is that the design isn't particularly luxurious. The laptop has an all-plastic, all-black chassis, textured on the lid and with brushed aluminium surrounding the keyboard. At 2.1 kilograms and 22 millimeters thick, it's rather bulky and the overall build quality is underwhelming, too. The plastic panel around the keyboard has a little bounce when you type on it and the screen suffers from an alarming degree of flex. As for ports, there are two USB 2.0 Type-A ports on the right-hand side, and these sit alongside a 3.5mm headphone jack and a proprietary charging port. On the left-hand side you'll find USB 3.0 Type-A and USB 3.1 Type-C ports, a nice inclusion at this price. Impressively, there's also an SD card reader, an HDMI output and an Ethernet port. Flip the laptop over and you'll see a removable panel, which gives you access to a slot for RAM and storage upgrades via 2.5-in drive bay. There's no fingerprint reader, but, at this price, that's to be expected. Display. The Aspire 5's 15.6-in Full HD display is both sizable and practical, and, as highlighted above, it gives the Acer an advantage over its competitors when it comes to resolution and, therefore, sharpness. It has a matte finish, too, which keeps distracting reflections at bay. The screen's contrast ratio of 321:1 is disappointing, and, because Asus is using a TN panel here, you'll see color shift whenever the screen isn't facing you directly. This panel doesn't display colors particularly well, either. Its sRGB coverage of 52.6% is terrible, and this results in flat, lifeless colors with very little zing. At least the colors it does display are reasonably accurate, but that's no compensation for such an uninspiring showing in general. Performance. With a 1.6 GHz quad-core Intel Core i5-8250U processor inside and 8 GB of RAM, our review Aspire 5 performed admirably. It's one of Intel's latest, 8th-generation Coffee Lake chips, which has double the cores and has slightly different clock speeds compared with last year's Kaby Lake generation of processors. This year's Core i5 processor also has twice the amount of Smart Cache and faster integrated graphics. In our tests, the laptop performed well, achieving a score of 85 in the expert review's 4K media benchmarks, which is heaps ahead of the Kaby Lake equivalent, Intel Core i5-7200U, which was typically only able to achieve scores of between 48 and 55. So, it's well worth considering if you've otherwise been looking to buy a device with an older generation chip inside, such as the Dell Vostro 14. Finally, the laptop's battery life is also rather good. At 9 hours 46 minutes in the expert review's battery rundown test, the Aspire 5 punches well above its weight and should last you around a day and a half under medium load. By comparison, the Asus VivoBook S510A, which houses the Kaby Lake Core i7-7500U, manages only 5 hours 26 minutes. The Dell Vostro 14 5468 with an Intel Core i5-7200U on board achieves only 5 hours 51 minutes. It's all very impressive stuff.